Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today I will be reading some stories I found on Reddit as we play the Dark Souls DLC Artorias of the Abyss. As always, the stories, playlists, timestamps, music, my TikTok and videos used will be linked in the description. If you like videos like this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. That being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. This first story is from the No Sleep subreddit, which usually contains scary stories, but this video won't just be scary stories. We're going to jump around from different types of stories. So let's get into it. My truck was found abandoned at mile 44, and I don't remember leaving it. The troopers found my truck abandoned on the side of an unknown highway at mile marker 44. My wallet was sitting on the driver's seat. I did not get lost, not like the report indicates. I am only posting this now because I do not want anyone else to exit their vehicle and discover what was waiting for me on the tundra. Before then, Alaska was my sanctuary. You cannot easily find a quiet corner of the map. You don't know if you'll find peace or something else entirely in these remote regions. But after what I had just come from at home, that was exactly what I craved. I needed a place to myself to think, to be with my thoughts and my camera. The disconnected state highways seemed ideal for this. The isolated gravel roads that turn away from coastal villages and just stop. But this was the road that was my favorite. It is an unpaved road that followed the ocean east until it turned inland. There's no cell phone service out there and no settlements, only the leftovers of the gold rush. I was out there by myself and just where I wanted to be. I am never reckless on the tundra. I had a pack behind the seat with water, a mylar blanket, a headlamp, and a flare. The essentials that had always been sufficient up to then. I had been driving for a couple hours, stopping only to take pictures of the rusted carcass of the last train to nowhere, a locomotive abandoned at the start of what was to be a gold rush railroad, now slowly being reclaimed by the tundra. The quiet was calming, interrupted only by the crunching gravel beneath my tires and the distant call of seabirds. At some point, my eyes caught the odometer and then the mile marker, a simple green sign reading 44. I had been mentally counting the markers as I passed them, and for whatever stupid reason, could not remember seeing 43. Before I could dwell on it, my engine failed abruptly. It had been running steadily a moment before, and then absolute silence. No cough or stutter. It simply coasted to a stop. The dashboard lights were dark. The radio, which had been emitting a wash of static from a town I hadn't been near for 2 hours, was dead. I tried the ignition. Nothing happened. I suspected it was the alternator, or perhaps the battery. I know basic mechanics, so popped the hood. My hope was for a disconnected cable or something obvious. The engine bay was clean and dry though. No burning smells or anything that indicated why it had stopped running. A chill moved through me. The temperature felt like it had quickly dropped, and the earlier feeling of peace was replaced with growing unease. Even the wind seemed different, rustling the low brush, but sounding oddly intentional. It was at this point I saw him, 50 yards or so away, half hidden by a cluster of hardy vegetation. I knew if he had approached me when I first exited my vehicle, I would have heard him, but he was simply standing there. What I noticed first was his hair. It was a rusty red, and stood out immediately against the background of the landscape. He wore a red flannel shirt and was completely still, just standing there, watching me. My immediate reaction wasn't fear. It was some kind of confused and welcome relief. Another person who perhaps has trouble and also needs assistance. I waved. No reaction from him. "Hello," I shouted. "My truck died. Everything okay?" He didn't move, and although I couldn't see his face, I could feel him watching me. I took a step off the road in his direction, sinking slightly in the squishy tundra ground, thinking maybe he couldn't hear me. "Are you all right?" I shouted again. I waited for a nod or a wave, anything, but he remained rooted to the same spot. I took another cautious step forward, holding my hand up with my palm facing outwards to avoid looking aggressive. I was now less than 20 yards away from him. I took one more step forward, and it felt like he was now very close to me. I stopped walking. It had to be the perspective. I told myself, the open terrain of Alaska can play tricks with distance. I had read that before. "Hey," I said louder, "you all right out here?" He tilted his head slightly. as if listening intently. I became acutely aware of how exposed I was standing out there on the open road, with my dead truck behind me and empty road stretching away on either side. My body instinctively took a step back toward the vehicle. He straightened, and it appeared as though he had moved again, closer still, and this time I could clearly see the bold red of his flannel. It was only then I realized he moved. He didn't step towards me or turn around. He simply raised one arm and pointed down the road in the direction I had been traveling. At first, I thought he was indicating something I should avoid or that I should continue. I stopped and hesitated. Something was not right about the whole situation. I looked back at my truck, thinking it best to try the ignition one last time. I turned my gaze back to where he had been standing in the brush. He was gone. I scanned the horizon left, then right, looking for any glimpse of red, any sign that I wasn't being hallucinated into a panic. He had not walked away. There was no place to go out there. The land is flat and open for miles. He simply wasn't there. I remained standing still, straining to hear him, but the wilderness suddenly seemed too quiet. Even the wind sounded far away. Then I heard it, a sound completely inappropriate to the situation, a loud giggle. It was quick and muffled, as though someone had been laughing into their hand. I froze, my blood running cold. It was followed by another giggle, seemingly coming from all around me. It grew, twisting and morphing from an innocent sound to a full, maniacal laugh echoing through the silence. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated mirth, and it ended as abruptly as it began. The only noise left was the thunder of my own heart. My hands shook so much I could barely open the zipper on my jacket. All rational thought had fled. Every nerve ending screamed at me to run. Run where? My truck, though dead, was still my shelter, my only potential refuge. I turned my back on the empty space where he had been standing and took one step towards the truck. I caught a flash of red at the periphery of my vision, a shape against the barren landscape. I blinked once, and there he stood, smack in the middle of the road, blocking my path to the truck, no more than 20 feet away, his boots crunching on the gravel, the stones shifting around them. At this proximity, I could see him fully. The red hair, the flannel shirt, his face unervingly blank, but his eyes were black voids absorbing the light. We stared at each other for what seemed like forever. He tilted his head again, in the exact way he had done previously. Then he slowly and carefully raised his foot and dragged it across the gravel, leaving a line from one edge of the road to the other. He looked at me, then at the line, and then pointed down the road away from my vehicle. The implication was clear. Do not cross that line. Keep walking away from the truck. Do not go back. Why? Why would I abandon my shelter, my only source of safety? The question pounded in my head, but his blank eyes provided no answers. There was only the line and the silent, terrifying command. All of my survival instincts were screaming at me to run to the truck and lock the doors. But I couldn't. The feeling of him there paralyzed me, and I knew deep down that my truck was not safe to be inside, but it was the only place that could offer any protection at all. I did not move immediately. I stole a glance towards my truck. The door was still half open. I looked back at him. My body made a decision before my mind could protest. I took a shaky breath, walked up, and crossed the line in the gravel. The second I crossed it, everything changed. My vision started to blur. The person standing in front of me stretched and went out of focus. The last thing I clearly remember was my truck, and hearing a faint sound of that giggle, and then nothing. I don't remember anything that happened after that. The next thing I was aware was a man's voice asking me if I was all right. I was lying beside the road, many miles away from my truck, disoriented and cold. A passing tourist had found me. My jacket was unzipped, and I had frostbite on one hand where I was missing one glove. The camera, my reason for traveling to Alaska, was gone when we went to retrieve the truck. The official story remained simple. My truck was found at mile marker 44. I was discovered hours later many miles down the highway, suffering from exposure and very confused. When the Alaska State Troopers questioned me, I explained what I could remember. The truck breaking down, my trek for help, but I left out any mention of the red-haired man. How do you explain something like that? It was easier to just accept their explanation that I must have had some medical event and temporary amnesia But forgetting about it wasn't an option. For months, I dug through archives and old news articles for mention of inexplicable disappearances from that same stretch of road. I found that 10 years before me, a man disappeared from that precise spot. His truck found at mile marker 44, and his body never recovered. I wish I could say that ended my search. It didn't. It led me thousands of miles away to a road in New England connected, in a strange way, to number 44 as well. Again and again, in forum posts and local legends pages, I encountered tales of a phantom hitchhiker, a man with red hair, wearing a red flannel, who would appear at the side of the road, sometimes in people's cars, emit a terrifying, unhinged laugh and then vanish. 2 roads, across 2 ends of the continent, both linked with the number 44, both with a vanishing, red-haired figure. I don't have answers. I just know that I crossed that line at mile 44, and I survived. 10 years ago, a man stood on that same spot, and he didn't make it. Was the figure trying to harm me, or protect me from some greater danger? Was a line in the gravel a threat or a warning? These questions have stuck with me ever since. And one final thing I can't explain. A few days after I was found, my wallet was handed back to me by the troopers. Inside there was sand and fine dirt, like it was pressed on a highway with a boot. Am I overreacting? My boyfriend won't stop peeing in our yard. My boyfriend grew up around a dad that peed wherever he wanted to. Recently, me, him, and our roommate moved into a house together with a decent backyard, but no larger than half an acre. We have neighbors on both sides of the fence, and a studio separate from our house that we use as a creative space. Ever since we moved in, sometimes we would get out of the car and pee on a tree right in front of our house, or bushes next to the neighbor's house. I told him it was disrespectful. People can see, it starts to smell, and it genuinely makes me feel uncomfortable because I walk around our yard barefoot all the time, collect wood for bonfires, say hi to the neighbor's dog at the fence, etc. Usually he pees outside even when it's 30 seconds from an unoccupied toilet. I've told him it makes me uncomfortable more times than I can count. He has male friends come over all the time, and despite knowing I feel discomfort being in my own space, he has encouraged them to pee right outside my studio. A couple weeks ago, I saw his friends full D while I was outside. He keeps apologizing profusely when I say it bothers me, but he just keeps trying to be sneaky about it. A couple nights ago, he walked in from outside, and his pants were halfway off. I asked him what that was about, and he just straight up lied to me. His underwear were a little wet when he took his pants off, and I just completely lost it. I had to take a walk to cool off. I told him he obviously doesn't take me seriously if he keeps doing it, and I need to move out if this keeps happening. It was really the line that put me over the edge. Am I overreacting? I don't feel comfortable in my own space. His dad and at least 5 of his friends have been peeing in our yard, and that was just in the last couple months. It starts to smell if it hasn't rained. I feel like I can't even trust him, and his inconvenience of walking 30 seconds to the toilet is way more important than my comfort or even following through with promises he has made me. Am I overreacting? I 21 female for crashing out every time him 20 male acts this way red heart adhesive bandage. Relationship. Before I start, feel free to tell me what you think, and any advices would help. I don't even know where to start because this story is so long, but I need to get this off my chest. I used to have a huge crush on this guy for months before we actually started talking. We go to the same university, but we never had classes together. Eventually, we both joined a group chat for people from our shared community and decided to form a club to host events. Out of 80 people, only 6 of us, including him and me, decided to be the committee. He became the president, and I became the secretary. We clicked immediately. Our first conversation was 2 hours straight, and the second time we hung out, we were together from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. The chemistry was so much that everyone in the club noticed it. But it turned out we only clicked in person. On text, he made 0 effort. He wouldn't take me out or even try to see me. I thought he was shy, so I put in some effort. I even confessed I was interested, and he left me hanging for 2 weeks without an answer while he went on a trip with friends and a bunch of girls. When we finally met, he was 40 minutes late, which made me feel like garbage. Even though he said he was open to something, He gave me zero effort for another 2 weeks. When I finally confronted him, he just said he was busy with exams, eating, sleeping, and playing FIFA. He ended up ghosting my text for 2 months. I saw him after those 2 months and completely ignored him. I was over it and accepted he wasn't into me, but since then, he has made the club a living hell. Looking back, he used to nag me even when we talked, calling me useless and getting mad when I had an attitude about it. Now, every time I make the smallest mistake, he threatens to kick me out of the club, knowing I need the certificate for my CV, once we had volunteering. And I purposely decided to volunteer in a different time slot to not see him. I was talking to a guy, and he shows up and cuts our conversation off and constantly starts making fun of me. He would purposely schedule a meeting for 9 p.m. at uni. I told him to make it 8 p.m. because I had another meeting at 9 p.m. and it takes me an hour to go home, but he refused. When I arrived at 9:30 p.m., he introduced me to people disrespectfully and said he was going to kick me out. When I said I had to leave at 10 p.m. to catch the train before it closed, he threatened me again. I'll admit, sometimes I do get disrespectful back because I'm frustrated. So I actually went up to him with another girl to apologize for tension. He literally apologized to the other girl, then looked at me and said, "I have my issues with you. I won't apologize." And he knows he's been constantly disrespectful to me. The double standards are actually insane. The vice president misses meetings and events all the time, and he never says a word. I have only ever missed one event and meeting the whole term, and he made it such a huge issue. Recently, I set a meeting 2 weeks in advance, and absolutely no one showed up except for him. It hurts so much because when he sets a meeting only 2 hours before everyone shows up, he allows others to be disrespectful to me and never stands up for me. But when someone else is rude to another person, he forces them to apologize. He doesn't mind when others not putting woofer in the club, but the moment I do anything, it's an issue because I'm constantly arguing with him to stop the disrespect. He has made it look like I am the problem to the group. His behavior is so targeted that even a girl in the club asked me, "Why is he only acting like that to you?" Even 2 of his own guy friends have told him to stop. I'm just tired and annoyed. I am constantly arguing with him about it, and it's getting so annoying. He knows exactly what he is doing and refuses to apologize for everything he did. Yet he is still constantly bothering me whenever he gets a chance, but in a negative way. He is clearly holding some type of grudge against me, but won't tell me and keeps making it worse for me. I could go on to the things he did, but I'm wondering why would he only do this to me? I'm hurt that he didn't like me back, but I'm even more frustrated that he is doing this only to me. Am I overreacting about how my partner handled finding out he has a 14-year-old daughter? Red heart adhesive bandage. My partner, 35 male, and I, 24 female, recently moved in together. We signed a lease together and still have about 5 months left on it. So our lives are pretty intertwined right now. He has 2 daughters already who stay with us part-time, and I've been very involved in helping with their routines and day-to-day things. Recently, a woman he used to date reached out to him on TikTok, saying he has a 14-year-old daughter he didn't know about. Obviously, that's huge news, and I understand why he would want to process it and start building a relationship with her. What has been difficult for me is how everything has unfolded. He actually found out about the daughter a few days before he told me. During that time, he had already started communicating with the mother and figuring things out. By the time he told me, some conversations had already happened and steps were already being taken, which made me feel caught off guard and a little excluded. He also told me he wanted to handle the situation on his own while he figured things out, but he did involve other people in the process, including his daughters, and when to meet the girl. I mostly found out about things after they had already happened. Since then, he has talked about putting a lot of our life plans on hold while he focuses on building a relationship with his daughter. He said he doesn't want any more kids now and possibly not ever, which is a big shift from conversations we had before. He has also said most of his free time when his other daughters aren't with us will likely be spent getting to know her. I genuinely understand wanting to make up for lost time with a child, and I don't blame him for wanting to build that relationship. The part that's been hard is that it feels like our relationship has suddenly been put on the back burner. On top of that, things had already started feeling off even before I knew about the daughter. Communication had been getting worse. He seemed more distant, and he'd been picking up extra shift at work, even on the one day we normally have off together. Our physical and emotional connection also seemed to decrease around that time. There have also been a few things that made me uneasy. I helped him get another phone when his ex had previously shut off his service, and after that situation resolved, he ended up keeping and using both phones. Around the same time, he also changed passwords on things like his phone and accounts, which wasn't something he had done before. When I asked him directly if reconnecting with the mother or finding out about the daughter had brought up any unresolved feelings that I should be concerned about, his response was basically, no, yes, maybe, I don't know anything right now. When I try to talk about the shift I feel in our relationship or ask what's going on, it sometimes turns into him saying I'm overthinking or reading too much into things, which has left me feeling like I'm questioning my own perception of what's happening. Because of everything happening at once, the secrecy at first, the changes in communication, the phone and password changes, the sudden shift in our future plans, and the overall distance, I'm having a hard time figuring out if my reaction is reasonable or if I'm letting the situation get in my head. Am I overreacting for feeling hurt, excluded, and unsettled by how all of this has been handled? Mom literally walked past my open door while I was mid-orgasm. I'm 28 now, but back when I was 26, I was living at home to save money, and my room is right off the hallway, meaning anyone coming in has to pass my door to get to the kitchen or whatever. Me and my then boyfriend are in the middle of, some enthusiastic adult activities. We're going at it, full throttle. I'm mid-climax, moaning way louder than I realized because the AC was blasting that white noise hum. Sweat everywhere. That musky bedroom smell mixed with his cheap cologne, my heart pounding like a drum solo. Suddenly, I hear the front door creak open. Then footsteps. My brain freezes. Wait, is that Mom? She's supposed to be at work. But we're too far gone, and right as I hit the peak, I catch a glimpse through the crack in my door. Yeah, I forgot to close it all the way. Idiot move. She's walking past, grocery bags in hand, and our eyes lock for a split second. Hers widen like saucers. Pure panic. Face burning hot, her stomach dropping to my knees. Post-coitus silence hits. Broken only by the pantry door squeaking. That rusty hinge sound I know like my own heartbeat. She's unloading stuff, pretending nothing happened. Then, footsteps back down the hall. She pauses outside my door and says in this sing-song voice, I'm not here. I'm not here. La la la. While literally backing out the front door and leaving again. I could hear her keys jangling as she fled. Boyfriend laughed his ass off, but I was mortified, curled up fetal whispering, oh God, no. So, remember that post from forever ago where my mom speed walked past my open bedroom door mid-orgasm, saying, I'm not here, la la la, like a deranged cartoon character, and yeeted herself back out the front door? Yeah, that one. I've mostly recovered. We joke about it now. Sort of. Last weekend we're at her place having wine and takeout. Just the two of us, laughing about dumb old family stories. Out of nowhere she goes, you know, I still think about that day sometimes. I immediately choke on my Pinot. Mom, please. We agreed we only mention it once a year max, and then burn the memory. She smirks, swirls her glass, and says, yeah, but I never told you the full thing. When I walked past your door, I wasn't actually coming home from work. I freeze. What? I had forgotten my reading glasses. I literally ran back inside for 30 seconds to grab them from the kitchen counter. That's why I was only there for like 2 minutes total. I saw you too, realized what was happening, panicked, grabbed the glasses, and then did the whole la 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 performance so you wouldn't think I was standing there staring. Long silence. Then she adds, deadpan, also, your boyfriend but was nicer than I expected. Good for you. I screamed into a pillow for a solid minute while she cackled like a witch. Anyway, I'm proud of you for having a healthy sex life. Just maybe lock the damn door next time, sweetheart. I'm 28. I have my own apartment now, and I still double-check every lock like I'm in witness protection. The girl who texted me every night at 2:17 a.m. 3 months ago, I started getting texts from an unknown number every night, exactly 2:17 a.m. The first message just said, "Did you lock the balcony door?" I thought it was a wrong number. I ignored it. Next night, 2:17 a.m. again. "You forgot to water the plant again." Now that was weird. I do have a plant on my balcony. I had actually forgotten to water it. I replied, "Who is this?" No response. Next night, "Don't drink the milk in the fridge. It expired yesterday." I checked. It had expired yesterday. At this point, I was half creeped out, half curious. So I wrote, "Okay, this is getting weird. How do you know these things?" 2 minutes later, the reply came. "Because I used to live there." That actually made sense. Maybe the previous tenant still had some weird attachment to the place. So I asked her name, Anya. Over the next few weeks, we kept talking. Only at 2:17 a.m. Never during the day. She knew every corner of the apartment, which floorboard creaks, which drawer gets stuck, even the fact that the bathroom light flickers sometimes. It became oddly comforting. Some nights we just talk about life, jobs, music, random things. One night, I asked why she moved out. There was a long pause. Then she wrote, "I didn't move out." I laughed and sent a question mark. No reply that night. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I went to the building manager and asked about the previous tenant. He looked confused. Then he pulled up an old file. "Anya Sharma," he said slowly. "She lived in your apartment." I asked when she moved out. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said something that made my stomach drop. "She didn't move out." I felt my chest tighten. "What do you mean?" He looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should say it. Then finally, "She died there, a year and few months back." My head started spinning, because the day I got the first text was exactly the same date on which she died a year ago. That night I waited. 2:17 a.m. My phone buzzed. Her message. "By the way, you should really start locking the balcony door." I typed with shaking hands. "Why?" 3 dots appeared. Then the last message I ever received from her. Because the thing that pushed me came from outside. The reason I would absolutely never make it as a porn actor. In 1998, I lived with my wife and my son in a house we were buying. We didn't make a lot of money at the time and couldn't afford a new computer. So we got one for my sister-in-law. I got it hooked up and it worked fairly well. But there were some issues. One was that it was used at a company, and it had files that I could not get rid of. I tried every trick I knew. It was also very slow when it came to adding accessories to it. I would have to have them hooked up for hours to get them to work. One day, the wife and I went to a yard sale, and I saw a webcam for $2. It was same brand as the PC we had, so I took a chance and bought it. I often was in chat rooms and wondered if I could get the webcam going. I was busy with some other things, and I tossed it in a drawer for the time being. Now, the wife and I at the time would occasionally rent porn movies. There was a secondhand store down the street, and if I went in later in the evening, the guy had a box behind the counter he would bring out, and I could rent one for very little money. The wife and I sometimes talked about making movies, but neither of us ever wanted to. But talking about it was good for a laugh. On one particular Friday, our son, who was 11 or 12 at the time, decided to spend the night with his best friend down the street. As a matter of fact, I knew his friend's dad pretty well. So it was just me and the wife. We had dinner, and afterwards, I grabbed the webcam and powered up and logged on, seeing if I could find info or needed drivers, etc. I didn't find much, so I figured go ahead and connect it. I did manage to get the camera to power up. It was a small one that just sat on the desk. After a while, a screen popped up and showed the camera view. The screen had radio buttons for still pics and for video. I tried activating them, no luck. It just sat there, it seemed like. I got a little perturbed with it, got up and went to talk with my wife. During our conversation, I forgot about the whole thing, and after we talked for a while, I told her I'd be getting a shower and get ready for bed. When I walked by the computer desk, I noticed the screen was blank and figured I had turned it off. I got a shower and we bedded down for the night. It was a good thing that early the next morning, I decided to power up and see what weather would be like for the weekend. As I went to go sit down, I bumped the desk and activated the screen. As soon as I sat down, I froze with shock for about 5 seconds, for what I saw on the screen was a fairly good pic of my hairy, ugly bottom. When I had gotten done with my shower, and because no one was there but me and my wife, I had not put a towel around me as I walked by the desk on my way to the bedroom. Fortunately, our computer had not been online because we had dial-up at the time, and my wife had called her sister while I was in the shower. After seeing that, I remember telling my wife that I would never take a picture like that again, or dare to make any such movies. OMG. The lady who shat on her phone. For context, I work at a phone store. We have our regulars just like anyone else. This one particular woman, let's call her Brenda, comes in 2-3 times a month. She comes into the store with a very simple issue, needing us to get it fixed. I finish up with my current customers and then go to her and in about 2 minutes get her issue fixed. She stays seated and lingers around for several minutes. My prior customer walks out the door and Brenda walks over to me. At first she is just yapping like normal, but then she says, "Hey, I want to tell you a funny story. Actually, I've never told anyone this before." At this point she is already laughing, so in thinking this is going to be good, she looks at me and says, "So about a month after I got this new phone, I was out with my gals and needed to use the restroom." Oh, but I knew it was going to be bad like diarrhea. I'm already very concerned with where this story is going. But I just say, "Yeah, that's not good." She continues, "So I rushed to the bathroom, and you know how people keep their phones in their back pocket? Well, mine was. And I pull my pants down not thinking about it. I wipe and go to flush and realize it's not going down. Then I look down in there and realize my phone was underneath and kind of sticking out. By now my stomach's in knots because I just touched all up on her phone. I'm like uncomfortably laughing along with her. She proceeds to tell me she had to dig her hand down in there to get out. She washed off her hands on the phone, takes it home, and uses sanitizer to clean it up. However, the phone's in rough shape, now not turning on. So what does she do? She comes into the store and has my coworker examine it and try to bring it back to life. He ultimately says to take it home and let it dry out in a bag of rice, which she did, and the phone works great now. She then tells me, "I just told him it fell in the sink though. I didn't want him to know I had..." Insert several blinks. Well, anywho, girlie, I better get going. Thanks for helping me out again. That was it, and she left. Am I the asshole for always kicking my boyfriend out? My boyfriend and I have been together from February 2020 to now. We were 19 years old, and now, 26, I am pregnant with our first child. We grew up quite different. He was along the poor side. He had no running water, electricity, not toilet, and he never had to pay any bill. We used to be so happy we never really argued, just small fights like every normal relationship, but we were okay. In 2021, I started to sleep by his house a lot. He fixed it up for me, and I would be there mostly every night. We used to bathe outside and get gas for his generator and stuff like that. He works construction, and throughout all these years we have been together, he barely worked first. I blamed it on the pandemic, but came to realize he doesn't really want to work. I never pressured him to get a job, because he would always find little jobs to make money. He told me he had a car and never saved the car, because he didn't want me to see it in a bad shape. I gave him money to fix the car, but never saved the car. He told me he eventually sold it. I got a car I used to go to work and school and let him drop me. He crashed the car, took forever to fix it. I had to get my own money to fix the car. We moved into my family home, so my rent wasn't a lot. I never asked him to help pay any bills because I could have managed the bills on my own. When I did ask, he would only give me a portion of the funds and never give the res. I always managed to get everything under control. He didn't have no documentation. I drove him around to where he had to go pay for his things to get his documents and checked up on everything for him. He still says I don't do nothing for him. We don't go out on dates. We don't travel. We don't do gifts. We do no, despite that fact that I told him I wanted to start doing these. I paid for us to go on vacation. Last year, all he had to do was come up with the spending money. He proceeds to tell me he don't think he doesn't have enough money a day before a flight. I went on the trip myself, and my sister later came to... He says he loves me, but I just don't believe his actions, but I so think he really loves me. I came and noticed that he puts his family before me, which I don't mind, but I tell him sometimes you have put me first. I have been here when you have nothing. I have bailed him out of jail numerous of times because his family doesn't have jobs or don't make enough money. We bought a new mattress together, and he burned it even though I paid for half of the car that he owed me. He continues to take it back from me, I guess, because he bought it. We have had huge arguments when I try to tell me he needs to go iPacky things and tell him I don't want him in my house. He doesn't pay bills, he doesn't have a job. So him being around is pointless. Whenever we make back up, he throws in my face that I kick him out with nowhere to go. We always fight over finances. He would give him countless amount of money because I know when he makes it back, I would get it. He would just go and take the money without asking. He told me to stop working because of the pregnancy. He bar-leg gives money and leave me home until he arrives with food to eat. Yesterday, we had another big fight. He told me to get $235, and that would be money for me. I never officially took the money, but had it laying around, I spent a total of $150 out of the money. He started complaining, and I got tired. I decided he needed to leave. He always does this. He started saying he doesn't care if eat, and I don't do nothing for him, and that he doesn't want to be around me. He tired of me kicking him out and make me feel like I am in the wrong. Can someone give me advice on the what? To do, I love him, but I don't know how much more I can take. He left last night with his things and still came back to sleep. I am not a confrontational person. I just want him to leave me alone. He already say he don't want to be around me, but he never leaves. Everyone on our street thinks my family is insane. Honestly, they're not wrong. We live on what people in our city call the rich street. Not like billionaire rich or anything, but like definitely well off. Big houses, nice cars, that kind of vibe. My family alone is already a whole crowd. There are 8 kids, 3 sisters and 4 brothers, and I'm somewhere in the middle. If you add my parents and my grandparents, that's 12 people living in the same house. Yeah, 12 grinning face, which is what my grandfather on my dad's side made pretty good money when he was younger. So he built up a decent fortune. And my dad also did really well for himself because he used to be a government minister. My grandma used to be a pretty well-known model in our city and a couple nearby towns back in the day. And now she works together with my mom. My mom is a photographer and collaborates with different brands and stuff. So we're not billionaires or anything crazy like that. But our family income is definitely above average and we live comfortably. Our house is big enough for all 12 of us. We have a huge backyard, and that backyard connects to the backyard of the house next door, where my mom's brother lives with his 6 kids, my grandma on my mom's side, and recently the sister of his wife moved in with them too. So yeah, between the 2 houses, it's basically a small village of relatives man-face palming. Everyone on our street knows us because we're always outside, kids running around, barbecues, family gatherings, loud conversations across the fence, the whole thing. The neighbors are friendly with us, but they also think our family is kind of unhinged in a good way. And honestly, there are reasons for that. Let's start with my second oldest brother, Eric. He got married to a girl, and then on the literal day of the wedding, he ran off with her younger brother. Yep, actually left the country with him. Completely cut off contact with our family and friends. And obviously that story couldn't stay secret because basically the whole neighborhood was at that wedding. So yeah, everyone knows. Then there's my twin sister. We went to the same school, same class, and we look so similar that if we were the same clothes, people could barely tell us apart. Everyone constantly said we looked like 2 drops of water. Apparently she got so tired of hearing that one day she came home from dance practice looking like a completely different person. Turns out she took money from our dad's office without asking and spent on a, let's call it, very dramatic makeover, loudly crying face. She got hair extensions down her knees, injected something into her cheekbones to make them more defined, got huge lip fillers, massive eyelash extensions, and shaved off her eyebrows. But the craziest part? She dyed the extensions bright neon lime green. Like, bright green. Hair down to her butt. Huge lips. Giant lashes. No eyebrows. When we saw her at dinner that night, the entire house just went silent and then exploded. Nobody even cared about the money she took. Everyone was just staring at her face like, what hell did you do? Flushed-faced. The next day, she walked down our street looking like that, and of course, everyone saw it. But people were polite enough not to say anything. This was years ago, though, and eventually she removed the extensions. Her natural blonde came back, and somehow the fillers disappeared too. I have no idea how that stuff works, lol. But back then, she definitely caused some chaos. Next comes my youngest brother. He's 14 now. Puberty, hormones, teenage stupidity, the usual stuff. I get it because I was like that too, but the stuff he does is on another level. Skull. This happened literally last week. My grandma on my mom's side picked him up from soccer practice together with two of our cousins. On the way home, she stopped at a gas station to get coffee and left the boys in the car for a few minutes. When she came back, her entire car was covered in stickers of male and female genitals, and they had written a bunch of dirty phrases all over the windows. For context, my grandma drives a purple Dodge Charger, and my brother had been begging her all winter to let him drive it to soccer practice once spring came. She told him she'd think about it. Well, the second she saw what they did to her car, that decision was made. Instantly, loudly crying face. She had to drive home like that through our entire neighborhood, and people are still laughing about it. And finally, my favorite story from about 3 years ago. My uncle, my mom's brother, decided to appear in a commercial for toothpaste. He has veneers and thought his perfect white smile would be perfect for advertising whitening toothpaste. The photo shoot went great. He saw the preview pictures and loved them. So he was just chilling and waiting for the final result. Then about a week later, a giant billboard with his face appeared right on our street. The problem? The designer added some weird warm filter to the photos, which made his teeth look extremely yellow man facepalming, like imagine a toothpaste ad about whitening teeth, and the guy in the ad looks like he hasn't brushed in 10 years. My uncle was so embarrassed that for 2 weeks he literally went jogging at night, so nobody would see him outside. Eventually, he managed to get the posters taken down, but our family still laughs about it. So yeah, that's my weird family grinning face with sweat, but weird in a good way. I'm part of this circus too, and despite all the chaos, none of our stories have ever turned into anything criminal. Just a lot of ridiculous family legends. My brother's wedding completely destroyed our family, and I still don't know how to feel about it. This happened in 2016. My older brother suddenly announced that he was getting married to his classmate, a girl named Andina. The strange thing was that none of us even knew they were dating. He had been in love with her for about 2 years since the start of their studies, but he never once told the family that they were actually together, let alone that a wedding was coming. Our family is huge. I have 3 sisters and 4 brothers. So when the news broke that the second oldest brother was getting married, the whole house went into chaos. Everyone started preparing immediately, organizing things, calling relatives, planning the celebration. What made it even stranger is that the preparation started before our family had even met Andina or her parents, but no one seemed too worried about it. Everyone was just excited. The wedding happened at the beginning of March, barely a month after we found out about it. It was a big celebration. Relatives from both families came, along with friends, neighbors, classmates. Pretty much half the town showed up. The hall was packed. I knew almost everyone there, except for one person. There was this boy I had never seen before. He immediately caught my attention, but not in a good way. Something about him made me uneasy. He was slender, very delicate looking, with a noticeably feminine figure. He wore light makeup, tight shorts, and a fitted t-shirt. Later I learned that he was Andina's younger brother, Cam. The way he looked and acted made it pretty obvious that he was gay. What bothered me wasn't that. What bothered me was how he behaved around my brother. All evening he hovered around him, constantly sitting close, touching his shoulders, winking at him, laughing at everything he said. At one point he even kissed my brother on the cheek. I wasn't the only one who noticed it. My parents noticed. Andina's parents noticed. Several relatives kept glancing toward the table, where Cam had somehow ended up sitting in the bride's place next to my brother, acting openly flirty. The weirdest part? Andina didn't seem to care at all. She was dancing with her friends, drinking, having fun. At some point, she completely disappeared from the banquet hall, and no one saw her for hours. The party went on until about 7 in the morning. By that time, guests started leaving to get some sleep, before coming back later for the second day of the wedding. In our town, we have a tradition. Everyone gathers outside and sees the newlyweds off as they leave for their hotel. People throw printed photos of the couple, taken before the wedding, at the car as it drives away. But suddenly someone realized something strange. There were no photos of my brother and Andina. Everyone stood outside confused, asking where the photos were and how we were supposed to send them off. Then the doors of the restaurant opened. My brother walked out, and Cam was holding onto his arm, hugging it tightly. They walked straight past everyone, got into the car together, and shut the door. Meanwhile, Andina calmly walked outside and stood with the guests. A second later, people started throwing photos at the departing car. But the photos were not the bride and groom. They were photos of Cam and my brother. You could hear people gasping. Some were yelling. Others were just standing there in total shock. Naturally, everyone immediately surrounded Andina, demanding answers, asking what kind of circus she had just turned the wedding into. And that's when she told us everything. A few months earlier, their university had hosted an open house event. Their group went to a club to celebrate. Andina knew my brother had been in love with her for years. That night he got drunk, kissed her, and tried to convince her to go somewhere private with him. She refused gently and told him she didn't feel the same way. But my brother was drunk and kept insisting, trying to pull her toward the bathrooms. That's when Cam stepped in. Apparently, Cam had been secretly in love with my brother for a long time. Instead of stopping him, Cam grabbed my brother and dragged him toward the bathrooms himself. That night, they hooked up. And according to Andina, it didn't stop there. For about a month, they kept meeting in secret. She said that before every meeting, Cam would spray himself with perfume containing aphrodisiacs. And when he came back home, he'd have hickeys all over his neck and look ridiculously pleased with himself. Hearing all this was surreal. My brother was a gym-obsessed, traditionally masculine guy who used to make borderline homophobic jokes. The idea that he was secretly sleeping with the brother of the girl he claimed to love felt impossible. We thought the story was already insane enough. But then Andina revealed the worst part. During those meetings, Cam had been secretly putting aphrodisiacs and some kind of drug into my brother's drinks. According to her, he basically made my brother dependent on him. And that was the last day we saw them. Cam and my brother disappeared together right after the wedding. They flew somewhere abroad and cut off all contact with both families. The whole situation was so shocking that I honestly don't remember parts of that day clearly. All I know now is that my brother and Cam are still together somewhere in Europe. And the strangest twist? Andina eventually married my other older brother. She recently got pregnant. So somehow, after all that chaos, she still ended up becoming part of our family anyway. I honestly still don't know what to think about any of it. Can someone break down her psychology for me? So there was this girl at my gym, and last September she approached me. When we started talking, I was always scared of attachments, and I had seen all this not ending well. So I wasn't much interested in the beginning, but she showed so much interest. So I thought I'd give it a shot and see where all this goes. The day we began talking until the day it ended in January, we used to be on video calls 24/7. We used to sleep together on video calls, which I can say is one of the best memories with her. She seemed to be so much interested in the beginning and bought me chocolates and asked me out, and it was all going pretty well. Also, one day we were hanging out after the gym, and she kissed me on my cheek out of nowhere, which happened to be a big thing for me considering my background. Cut forward to November, she suddenly tells me there is this other guy at the gym, and she has a huge crush on him, and she can't stop thinking about him. Apart from this, also there were so many red flags, but I ignored all of them because I got attached, and I wasn't strong enough to end things with her myself. She was really confused and started treating me like shit, but still I stayed, and that was my fault as I was attached. I regularly used to have those awkward conversations with her and asked were we, and she always gave me hints in her answers, and her answers were like, we are in a talking stage / situationship, etc., etc. She used to say I'm not her type, but she feels comfortable around me, and she didn't know whether she liked me or not. Also, she confessed once that she had a small crush on me in the beginning too. Now, confusions were more and more building. She used to regularly praise a guy she had a crush on in front of me regularly, and I told her this won't work this way, and I need clarity what exactly she wants. Cut forward to January, she says, okay, let's give it a try and come a relationship. And although I was confused, I was pretty happy and thought that I'm going to give my 100% and make her fall for me. But after just 2 days, she says she is very confused and doesn't want to continue, and just left like I didn't matter a bit. I didn't beg her for closure or anything, and I'm in no contact in the past almost 2 months, and I'm much better now. I do miss her, but it's manageable, although in the first week it felt like the end of the world. But I have so many questions in my mind, like wasn't I good enough? What could I have done differently, which just haunt me, and these questions are in my mind 24/7. And can someone please tell me what is moving on feels like? Because I don't know when will I get over it completely and how is that going to feel? Writing all this just to get all off my chest. And can someone break her psychology and tell me what she was thinking all the time? I caught my GF getting double-teamed by 2 guys. I try to kill myself. If you don't like long posts, just skip this one. No need to make a snarky comment. TLDR at the bottom. A few months ago, I made a post in another thread sharing a story about how I got cheated on by my college GF and the terrible obsession I acquired thereafter to get revenge on her. This is relevant to the story here. However, in this story I am about to share is a story that took place years after Lisa, my cheating college ex-GF. I got in another relationship and got cheated on again. But this time I didn't get revenge, but rather I just walked away. My revenge story in the other thread is a story of what not to do after getting cheated on, and this will be how I learned from my past, and try to do the right thing this time, even though it was incredibly difficult. The story, after I had a horrible incident of infidelity with my GF in college. Lisa, like I said, I went on a long, tedious mission to get even with her. This was followed by years of just being bitter and jaded towards women after college. I went down to Central America where I pretty much spent years just doing and selling drugs, never considering getting into a relationship or allowing myself to get vulnerable with another woman. I fully admit that I was an awful degenerate during this time. Well, after a few years of this, I found myself just more depressed than ever. The drugs weren't working anymore. I grew tired of having these face value shallow and temporary relationships with women. I decided to drop everything I was doing in Central America and come back to the United States. I called an old friend and made arrangements to move into his place temporarily until I got back on my feet. When I moved back to the USA, I decided to quit my gnarly drug habit I had developed preceding my college breakup with Lisa. It wasn't easy, but I was fully committed to giving happiness another shot. I also decided to give dating another chance. I had begun to feel pathetic that I was giving up on finding someone special just because some girl in college broke my heart by cheating on me. A couple months after moving into my friend's place, I had been on a few good dates with women in the area and started opening back up to the idea of allowing myself to grow close with a woman again. One day I met this girl on a dating app. We will call her Kate. Kate was 25 and I was 23, who I just absolutely fell head over heels for. She had that burgundy red hair that wasn't orange, but almost more of a fluorescent but natural red. She had a 3-year-old son who honestly I loved and looked kind of just like me. Kate had just gotten out of a terribly abusive marriage and was in a very similar position as me. She also just went through a period of grief and a bad drug habit. She had just cleaned herself up and was ready to try dating again. This worked well for both of us because we both completely understood each other's emotional state and were able to allow one another to proceed slowly and not expect too much out of each other. We both had fears of commitment and trust issues, and were still a little emotionally fragile due to our past relationships and drug habits. Besides this, we had so many things in common. Kate even said she felt like she was dating the male version of herself, and she liked it because we allowed each other to be completely authentic. As the months rolled on, we grew closer and closer. Me and her son got along, and he even called me Dad. He was too young to remember his biological father, and I was the only other father role he's ever had in his life. The day I taught him how to pee standing up on a tree sealed the deal for me, and he was my son from that point on. I got a job at a finance firm, and Kate worked at a nightclub. Things were going well, and we moved into an apartment together, bought a car together, and were in the process of trying to buy a house. We were going to get married and have a kid of our own. We only smoked weed occasionally and felt like we had fully recovered from our past drug addictions and emotional wreckage. We both crawled out of the depths of real darkness and found some peace and happiness together. Or so I thought. Me and Kate never had any jealousy or suspicions with each other. We fully trusted each other. We never went through each other's phones, and we knew each other's passwords and login info to everything. So we never had any issues around trust with one another until this happened. Typically, I would get up early in the morning before I got ready for work to walk Kate into the apartment from the parking lot because she wouldn't get home until after 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning from work, and it was a bit of a sketchy walk. The club typically was only open until 2 a.m. most days, but recently started staying open until for most nights of the week. Or so Kate told me. One morning, Kate said she was leaving work a little later because she had to drop a friend off at her house. She told me this only like 5 minutes before she would ordinarily arrive home. It usually took her about 35 minutes to get home from work. So I found a bit odd that she told me so last second, and I knew where a friend lived. So it may have only taken an extra 5 minutes to drop her off on the way to our place. She ends up getting home about an hour later than usual, and something seemed a bit off. She looked high, not on weed, but it struck me as if she was on coke or Molly. I briefly confronted her about this, but she brushed it off quickly and said she was late because her friend's car broke down, and they tried to get it fixed, but couldn't. That's why it took so long to get home. This was the first time in almost a year that anything like this happened, so I quickly pushed down my suspicions and chalked it up as me being a bit paranoid because of my past experience with infidelity and dishonesty. I told myself Kate would never do anything sketchy. She had been through the same thing I went through, and she knew in full detail my story about my last relationship. She would never do anything like that to me, especially since it happened to her too. I wasn't even that suspicious of her cheating or anything. I was more suspicious that she was doing hard drugs again. Slowly but surely incidents like this started happening more frequently. First like once a month, and eventually led all the way up to happening almost every week. There was a few nights where I was almost positive she was high on drugs, and we fought about it. She finally admitted one day that I thought she was high, that she did half a line of coke once because she was tired and needed to pick me up to get to work, but that was all she did. At this point, she was coming home at 5, 6, or even 7 a.m. some mornings regularly. Her club closed at 2 or at 4 a.m., depending on what day of the week it was. She always had excuses like the car wouldn't start. She would go to her friend's house after work to smoke weed, or she went to a Waffle House with some of her coworkers after their shifts. But then one morning, her text messages seemed severely suspicious. She wouldn't respond promptly, and it really seemed like she was forcing herself to sound genuine when texting me. She was doing the "I'm going to be home a little late" dance with me again, but this time it really dragged on. She told me she was on her way at 6 a.m., 2 hours after the club closed. So at 6:30, I went outside to the parking lot to walk her in when she arrived. It was snowing heavily outside. There was a blizzard going through the area. About an hour goes by, and I hear nothing from her. I text and call her over and over. She doesn't answer the phone, but I get a message from her saying she's almost home. Another hour goes by before she finally pulls up into the parking lot. The time was 9:30 a.m. I had to call out from work because I couldn't leave her son home alone. I usually left for work at 7:30. I'm completely covered head to toe in snow. I walk up to the car and I open her door. Kate looks at me like she had seen a ghost, and she begins rambling nervously and almost incoherently. She said she got pulled over but was let go without a ticket. The car ran out of gas, so she had to stop to fill up. Her friend was having a mental breakdown, so she stayed with her for a while to help her after work. She even started blaming me for things like saying she wouldn't have gotten pulled over if I got the registration done sooner. Yada, yada, yada. Thing is, she could have told me this by texting me or calling me at any point during all of this. It was all very suspicious. The whole time she won't shut up giving me very inconsistent stories while we were on our walk into the apartment. I can't help but notice how dilated her pupils are and how she is visibly grinding her teeth. Obviously, I was very angry at this point, but I was so exhausted and cold from standing outside for hours and worrying about her. I temporarily let it go and tried to distract myself with some video games. I was convinced she was doing cocaine at work or after work. What else was she up to? Who was she doing cocaine with? Just her co-workers and friends? Is she doing other drugs? Was she cheating? I was only mildly worried that she was cheating. I was more concerned about her drug use. We both had our runs in the past with them. Hence why we only smoke weed nowadays and occasionally had a drink. We weren't sober or anything like people in a 12-step program, but we tried to keep it very mellow. Her lie about the drugs was even more concerning to me than the actual drug use, because it was triggering my trauma from my ex Lisa, who lied to me and cheated on me in college. I literally was at the point where I didn't even care if she did the drugs. I just wanted her to be honest with me. I couldn't stand the thought of being in another relationship where my GF was lying to me about anything. My mind began to spiral. I felt completely betrayed. Me and Kate helped build each other back up after our tumultuous past, and now we wonderful lives. I never thought she would lie to me about anything. We had such an open book, trustworthy relationship, and we never experienced any problems with this type of stuff before. I got obsessed with trying to find out if she was lying about the drugs. I needed undeniable proof. The next day, when she left for work, I tore up the house looking for something. I had no idea what I was looking for. A bag of coke? Some pills, maybe? I went through every drawer, every nook and cranny of every piece of furniture, coat pocket on top of the cabinets. Anywhere she could hide something. I found nothing. I tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. My PTSD and insecurities about my past relationship were triggering me, and I was just getting obsessive with trying to find something that wasn't there. I decided I would stop trying to find out if she was lying, because if I was wrong, my behavior could ruin a good relationship. I thought Kate would never lie to me, or even worse, cheat on me. She had a horrible experience with her ex-husband cheating on her while she was pregnant, and he also had a drug problem from her. So I couldn't imagine her doing the same thing to me that her ex-husband did to her. So I let things go. She came home at normal times again for a while. This calmed me down a lot. I began to feel bad for my paranoia. Until one night, I'm at a local pool hall playing at a table with a random guy. We will call him Jerry. And while me and Jerry are chatting, I mentioned that my girlfriend works at the club's name. Jerry's sister, Sarah, was hanging out with us while we played pool. Said she worked at the same club a couple of months ago. I asked her if she knew Kate, and she said she did, but they weren't really that close. They mostly knew each other in passing. I then expressed that I wish Kate had a day job where we could be home together more at night when I got off work. I tell Sarah that since the club typically closes at 4, I would only see Kate for about an hour or two before I left for work in the morning. Sarah then looks at me confused and says, "I thought they close at 2 a.m.? When I worked there, we only close at 4 on Friday and Saturday nights." I tell Sarah, "They changed the hours after you left." Sarah then tells me that her roommate still works there, and she never mentioned the closing times had changed because she still comes home just after 2 during the week. It got awkward fast, but I shrugged it off and finished a game of pool. After the game, I went home, and I couldn't get what Sarah told me out of my head. I looked up the club Kate worked at, and indeed, it said they were only open till 4 a.m. on Friday and Saturday nights, and 2 a.m. every other night. I again convinced myself that they must have not updated the times on their website yet after they made changes or something. Deep down, I knew Kate was up to something, but I was so scared of being lied to again after years of avoiding relationships for that exact reason. I was in full-fledged denial. The next day was a Sunday night. I texted Kate and asked her when she would be off that night, and she said she would be home at 4:30, and she would text me when she was on her way. So at 2:30 a.m., I called the club and asked if I could speak with her. It was about her son. The manager answered and told me they had closed at 2, and Kate already left. I felt like I was going to throw up. I decided I was going to confront Kate. I don't know when she came home that night, because I ended up drinking until I passed out and didn't go out to the parking lot to walk her in. When I woke up, she was asleep next to me. I got up and went into the living room, where I saw her purse sitting on the coffee table. I picked it up and started to go through it. At first, I didn't find anything. No drugs or anything shady else that would throw me off. Then I noticed, tucked away in one of the small zippers, I found an empty dime bag and rolled up dollar bill. Is this what I've been looking for all this time? I just put down on the coffee table and went to work. I was hoping she would see it and know that I found it. When I came home, she was getting ready for work. She was in front of the bathroom mirror, doing her makeup, specifically her eyeliner. I lean up against the door and look at her through the mirror. She looks up and says, "Hey babe, what's up? How was work?" I guess she didn't see that I found the rolled up dollar bill. I reply with, "Hey, we need to talk about something." I proceed to tell her that I called the club, and they told me they close at 2 on Sundays. She immediately ignores the entire topic of her lying about what time the club closes, and proceeds to scream at me for being controlling and obsessive and not trusting her, and having no right to call the club in the first place. It didn't faze me. I had made sure that I wasn't just being paranoid. What she was doing was grade A gaslighting, which I was well experienced with because of my previous relationship. The fight continues to escalate. I accuse her of doing cocaine behind my back and lying to me about her drug habit. I call her a coke whore, and that's when she turns around and swings at me with her eyeliner. I turn in reflex, and she lodges the eyeliner pencil about 1.5 inches into my shoulder. She then proceeds to punch about 6 times in the face. I don't react or hit or back. I was mostly just in shock. Once she finished beating me and screaming, we both just stand there staring at each other. I pull the pencil out of my arm and drop it on the floor. I walk out of the bathroom and into the kitchen, where I get some duct tape and patch up the hole in my arm. I have a tattoo right where she stabbed me, and I still have a nice healthy scar there to this day. I leave the apartment and I start my walk to the liquor store. Kate is blowing up my phone. She is doing a whole thing where she is apologizing, and when she doesn't get a response, she beginning throwing insults and then repeats that cycle over and over. I buy a bottle of Fireball whiskey and proceed to walk and drink and walk and drink. I eventually black out and wake up to none other than the Jeffrey who I played pool with the other day and some other guy I didn't know trying to pick me up out of snow. They put me in their car. Apparently they were on their way to work and saw me fall and not move on the side of the street and pulled over to make sure I was okay. Today, I wonder where those guys worked because it must have been super early in the morning. I was walking for hours at that point and probably blacked out long before I fell. I had finished the whole bottle of whiskey very quickly. When I was in the car with them, they asked me what was going on and why I was walking around at that time of night, that far from the town. I could barely talk. It felt like my lips were frozen. I was able to tell them where I lived, and they dropped me off at home. When I go inside, Kate is shocked and tries to get me to lay down and get me warm. I blacked out again shortly after and wake up in a pool of vomit in my bed. I get up and take a shower and go out into the living room, where Kate is sitting on the couch crying. We begin to talk. She apologizes for stabbing me with the eyeliner pencil, and she admits that she had started doing coke again and was on her co-worker's place. A few of them lived together in an apartment. They were all females, and she would do coke with them before coming home. She first started doing it to help her get through work, and it just kept escalating. I asked her if it was just coke or if it was other stuff too, because there were some nights where she seemed like she was more than just coke. She admits every once in a while she took a Xanax to take the edge off the coke before she came home, but she did this rarely. We ended the conversation civilly, and she promised to stop doing drugs and lying to me about where she was, and that she would never hide anything from me again. But now that I knew she was capable of lying and keeping things from me, I was a bit more on my toes with things than usual. Weeks go by, and things are kind of back to normal for a while. The only odd thing was Kate was working more often than usual. She would cover for people more or pick up extra shifts randomly more often. Before, she only worked 4 days a week, but now she's working 6 or 7 days. It didn't become suspicious until I noticed that if we had a fight on a night she wasn't scheduled to work, she would immediately start getting ready and tell me she'd text her manager and asked if she could come in because she needed to get away from me. We only had one car, and this was before Uber was really everywhere, so I couldn't go check out her work to see if she really was at work. But then one day my friend was over while Kate was at work, and we were just playing video games and decided we wanted to go out to get some Taco Bell. Neither of us had it in forever. We had the munchies, and I wanted to find one, so I pulled out my phone to look on Google Maps where the nearest Taco Bell was. That's when I noticed something I had never seen before. Me and Kate shared a Google account on our Androids at the time, so it showed both of our search history for locations we typed into Google Maps. And on that very day, she searched some random location in a nearby neighborhood when she left for work. My head began to spiral again, and I told my friend I no longer felt up to it, and just wanted to go to bed. So he left a bit confused. I double-checked everything on my phone and even went on my computer and did some searches to see if there was any way I was misinterpreting it. And I was not. When Kate came home, I asked her if she really wanted to work that night. She got real defensive and started accusing me of being paranoid. I then proceeded to show her the Google Maps and how someone searched this location right when she supposedly left for work, and it was not me. She proceeded to tell me the most epic lie I've ever heard. She said, "I never went there or searched it. Google is wrong. ITS probably just a glitch." All right, now I finally admitted to myself. I am dating a liar again. I grab a few things and I get a motel in town. I spend many nights fighting with Kate over phone and crying while watching shitty cable TV. I was so angry that for the second time in a row, I'm dating someone who lies to me and keeps things from me. One of our fights gets so heated we completely stop talking for 2 days. We didn't break up though, just stopped talking. Something inside me was desperately hoping that maybe she's just doing coke and drugs, not cheating. But I am super suspicious that she is cheating at this point, and I couldn't let go of it. After a couple nights in the motel, I had convinced myself Kate isn't cheating. She was just back into her drug addiction, and I need to help her get out of it. I know firsthand what drug addiction can do to someone as it did to me once. I decided to reconcile with her. It was later at night, and I knew she would be back home in a few hours, and I would meet her in the parking lot with some flowers or something. I borrowed a friend's car, went to the shop and bought some flowers and headed home. I park in the parking lot and begin to wait for Kate to get home. At around 2:45 a.m., I see our car drive up to the parking lot, but I see someone in the passenger seat. It was Kate. She wasn't driving. She was sitting in the passenger seat. There was a man I didn't know driving my car. I just laid low and watched. When this random dude that didn't know parked my car, I wasn't ready for what happened next. Another man also gets out from the back seat. WTF is happening? Who are these people? The three of them walk into our apartment. I pull out my phone and begin to write a text message to Kate. I try to act like I didn't know anything so that I could see what she would say. Maybe these were just platonic friends and she had nothing to hide. I text her and asked her if she was home yet from work and if I could come over and we could talk things out. I told her I wanted to apologize for yelling and saying some hurtful things during our fights. I don't get any messages back for about 15 minutes, and then I get a text from her saying, "I just got home, but I want some alone time. I do love you with all my heart. Let's talk tomorrow." My heart was beating out my chest as I read the text. I banged my head on the steering wheel in rage while simultaneously crying. I get out of my car and decide to go inside and confront her. When I get to my apartment, the door is locked. I forgot my keys because I only brought the keys for friend's car. I heard loud music playing on the other side of the door. I tried knocking, but no one answered. I walk around the corner where I knew our living room window and bedroom windows were. We were on the ground floor level. I peep in through our living room window and I see no one. I was honestly hoping that I would see them. They're just smoking weed casually or something. But if they weren't in the living room, then where the fuck are they? I walk a little further down until I get to our bedroom window. The blinds were down, but I could see in if I put my eyes on the edge of the window to look real close. When I leaned in to look around the blinds, my heart sank into my stomach. On the other side of the blinds, in our bed, my beautiful girlfriend, whose son I consider to be my own, was getting spit roasted by the two guys I saw her walking with. I leaned up against the wall and slid down until I was sitting on the ground. My face fell into my hands. I sat there for 5 minutes, vaguely hearing what was going on through the window above me. I contemplated going in and killing all three of them. I was so filled with rage. I decided to get up and get back into the car. I start chain-smoking cigarettes as all my memories of the relationship that I cherished so much began to dismantle in my mind. Everything was a lie. Everything I thought about Kate that made me love her so much started to dissolve. Now a lot of you have read my story about when I was cheated on by my college ex-girlfriend, Lisa. When Lisa cheated on me, my rage let me do everything I can to get the gnarliest revenge I could. In that story, I went completely overboard and Lisa ended up extremely broken and abused. Now, many years later in my first relationship after Lisa, I'm in the same position, but worse. This time, however, I decide not to get revenge on Kate, as I did on Lisa. No, this time, I'm going to kill myself. But first, I'm going to kill Kate. I start the car and drive. I stop by a gas station that I know sells some basic hunting and fishing equipment 24 hours. They don't have any guns, but they had some hunting and skinning knives. I buy the largest knife they have and drive back to my motel, grab my keys to the apartment, and then head home to paint my bedroom walls with their blood. When I get there, I slowly and quietly open the front door. I begin to creep down the hallway to our bedroom. I'm gripping the knife tight, expecting one of the guys to maybe pop out. I inch up to my bedroom door. It's open, but the lights in the room are off, and I can't see anything inside. It's quiet. I don't hear anything. Sweat is dripping down my face, and I'm trying to control my shaking and breathing so no one hears me come in. Scared of what I might see, I reach into the bedroom and flip the light switch on. When the lights pop on, I just see Kate lie in the bed naked and by herself. Was I hallucinating earlier or something, or did those guys just leave before I got back? She didn't wake up, so I take a look around the room. I see a condom wrapper on a nightstand next to her bed, which pretty much confirmed what I saw, and I now knew I wasn't hallucinating. Me and Kate never use condoms. When I take my first step into the bedroom, I hear the door to her son's room across the hall open. I turn around quickly, ready to stab one of the two guys I saw earlier. But of course it's just Kate's son. My son. My first thoughts were, what is Kate's son doing here? Why didn't Kate take him to daycare or to her mom's house before she had two random dudes come over to fuck her? Was the little kid there the entire time while she was at work? Or while she was getting double-teamed across the hall? What the hell is wrong with her? He looks up at me from his bedroom door. Daddy, you're back! And he rushes in to hug my leg. I put my hand on his head. Look at the knife in my other hand. I put the knife in my back pocket, and I get on my knee and I tell my stepson, I'm going away for a while. Just wanted to say bye to you and Mom before I left. He then proceeds to give me the saddest face I have ever seen. I pick him up and take him back to bed, tuck him in and tell him goodbye. I knew it would be the last time I see him, but I didn't want him to know he was about to never see me again. Now, after that, I can't kill his mother. He can't grow up without his mother. He doesn't deserve that, even if I think she deserves to die. However, I still wanted to die. I walk out of the apartment and start walking down the street, just sobbing my eyes out. I sit down at a bus stop bench and I pull out the knife and I begin cutting at my wrists. I was ready to die. For like 10 minutes, I cut at them trying to get the blood to flow harder. Then a police car pulls up and two cops get out and one of them says, "Hey man, what are you doing?" I calmly tell him, I'm done. He radios and more cops, and before I know it, there's like 15 or 20 of them surrounding me. They spend about 20 minutes trying to get me to put the knife down. I'm bleeding all over. The cop walks closer to me and asks me to hand him the knife. I stare at the knife for a few seconds, but he hadn't talked me off the ledge. Nothing at this point could. I also knew I couldn't get out of the situation without being thrown into a psych ward. I raised the knife over my head and lunged at the officer. And before I could even take 2 steps, I'm on the ground getting tasered, and they're piling on top of me, putting handcuffs on me. I had made one major miscalculation. I thought if I made a move toward the officer, they would for sure shoot me dead. But I forgot I was white. So unfortunately, I was only tasered. The next thing I know, I'm riding in the back of the cruiser, and they take me to the hospital where they sedate me and patch me up. They gave me some sedatives that completely knocked me out. The next thing I know, I wake up, and I'm in what I later find out is a psych ward for the criminally insane. It's like jail or prison, but worse. You don't know what day or time it is, and you get no communication with the outside world, or at least we didn't at this one. I'm not going to go into detail about what I experienced there. It was one of the darkest places I had ever seen in my life. I was in there for about 6 weeks before an attorney was able to get me off on a technicality. When I was released, I took a taxi home. It was about 3 hours away. I called Kate, and she was ecstatic to hear from me. She had been so worried and had no idea what happened to me. I told her I would explain everything, but I needed her to meet me at the McDonald's and not to bring her son with her. She was confused at first, but agreed she would meet me after she dropped her son off at daycare. Kate later walks into McDonald's and rushes to try and hug and kiss me, but I brush her off and tell her to sit down. This threw her off a bit, but she sits down, and I tell her what happened. Everything I saw before I was thrown into the ward. What she responded with shocked me. Kate had the audacity to try and deny everything. She said I must have looked into the wrong apartment and saw someone else. I shook my head in disbelief, and I cut her off mid-sentence. I told her she needs to tell me the truth right now, and if she tries to lie to me again, I will get up and walk out of this McDonald's, and she and her son will never see me again. I look at her sternly in the eyes, and she could see I meant every word I said. I ask her one more time, "Have you been cheating on me?" She looks down at her lap and begins to cry. She mutters, "Yeah, I have." She proceeds to admit that her drug problem had gone from coke to meth, and she was also doubling down with Xanax every night. That's why the guy was driving our car, because she was too intoxicated to drive. I stare at her for about a minute, and before I let out a big sigh, I pull my phone out of the charger and stand up. She looks up and asks, "Where are you going?" I look her dead in the eyes and say, "I'm going to go do drugs. It's all I can think to do right now." As I pick up my backpack, she asks me if we are still together. I tell her, "No, I didn't mean I was going to stay if you told me the truth. I was going to leave either way. I just wanted to hear you admit it before I left." The events after, for the next few months, I pretty much lived on the road, basically homeless. I would hop from town to town, mostly selling drugs at strip clubs and crashing where I could. Sometimes I slept in motels. Sometimes I slept outside. I was doing a lot of my own product. I lost almost 65 pounds in these few months because sometimes I would go days without eating or sleeping. One day I wake up in a hospital. I had been having seizures, and my internal organs had begun failing. I was severely malnourished. I'm 6 feet 5 inches, and I was weighing in at 155 pounds, soaking wet after a big meal. Multiple doctors and therapists came in to see me every day, trying to figure out what was going on with me. I spent about a month in the hospital, recovering before I was discharged. The doctors recommended I seek a sobriety program. They concluded that I had no mental disorders other than PTSD, and mostly just had a polysubstance addiction problem. When I was discharged from the hospital, I stayed at a halfway house/shelter for almost 4 months. I found a sober program and began going to meetings and never touched a drug again since I was released from the hospital. I got a new phone and number. Almost no one from my life prior to my stay in the hospital had any contact with me anymore. While I was in the halfway house, I started working out to try and regain some size. I look like a beanpole. When I was released from the halfway house, I got a job at a nearby gym as a personal trainer. A brand new career path for me, but the gym had become my new safe space where I felt Oklahoma. Fast forward 5 years to today. I am still sober to this day. I'm weighing in at a healthy and lean 265 pounds. I am happily married for 2 years. I run my own lucrative business. The day I left the hospital, I thought long and hard about what I was going to do with my life. My instinct was to retreat into darkness. I still wanted to get back at Kate for what she did, just like I did with Lisa in college. After a few long periods of thought over the course of a few weeks, I decided the best revenge would be to live the best life I could. And most importantly, I decided to stop feeling sorry for myself for the things I went through. This changed the game for me. I stopped blaming others or the world for things that happened to me. Looking back at this today, 5 years later, and where my life has led me, I am so happy I made the decision to try a different course of action. I don't even recognize myself anymore. When I wrote these stories about Lisa and Kate, I don't even see me. I see some other messed up kid. I turned 30 this weekend. I got sober a month before my birthday 5 years ago. If you would have told me back then that I would be where I am now, I would never believe you. I am so happy I didn't take my own life, or even worse, take Kate's life that day. I am so glad I decided to get up and keep trying at life. I had to fall a few times, but when I finally got up, I flew. I spoke with Kate only once years after I left McDonald's the day she admitted to cheating on me. And after speaking with her, I gotta say, it's true what they say. The best revenge is living a good life. TLDR, I met a chick, we fell in love. We were both broken from previous relationships, but we helped each other heal. She develops a drug habit. She gets spit roasted by 2 guys. I catch her in the act. I try to kill her and then myself. Get locked up. Get out. I'm homeless. I almost die of drug use, failing organs and malnutrition. I get sober, and I live a wonderful life thereafter. Well, everyone, I think that's enough story time tonight. Thank you to everyone who is watching or listening to this video. And I hope it provided you a relaxing time. I will catch you guys in the next one. Good night, everyone.